backwards, but he could have ran forward. He had the terrain advantage. Mutalisk can fly over any type of terrain, obviously. And if you also notice, the red player hasn't attached his creep from his natural to his main yet. And HiGlhFs are very slow on solid ground, so those Hydras would have had to run back into the main. The Mutalisk could have gotten a couple more kills off and still having time to run away. So here you can see he's at it again. He's flying around, but now the red player had time to get some HiGlhFs in his main base, so now these Mutalisks aren't going to be very effective.
So it looks like our Zerg player is actually taking a third base, but really there's no reason to take this base on this map. Instead, you get a creep tumor, you get good creep spread. It's 1, 2, 3 creep tumors, you're at a high yield, you have full speed production, and you would be able to easily defend both of these high yields. Still with 2,000 minerals, there's no reason why either player shouldn't take their golds at this point in the game. Our blue Zerg player taking his backdoor third, which isn't a bad idea seeing as he does have Mutalisk on the field, and our red player opted for Hydras, so there's not going to be too much harassment of this backdoor expansion.
So as you can see, our red player is starting to get quite a decent ball of Roach Hydra army going on. It's a very strong army. Our blue player is opting for Infestors. Pretty good strategy. Just now getting Roach speed, a little late on that, but we are getting our level 1 armor and attack upgrades. In Zerg vs. Zerg, your upgrades are very important because your units are almost always going to be similar. Zerg doesn't have a lot of variety when it comes to units they can build. So if you're going Roach against Roach, the Roach with the upgrades is always going to win that battle. As you can see, our blue player has found the third natural, or the third expansion, and is harassing that a little bit, but we have some Hydras on the way to take care of this.
Now if you notice, if he had creep spread all the way up here, these Hydralisks would have got there so much sooner. Instead, these Mutalisks killed all the drones here. You can see their guts just lying on the ground, and now they're able just to fly out of here, and without the creep spread, these Hydralisks have nowhere, there's no way they can catch up. He does have Hydralisks splitting up a little bit, but still, these Mutalisks having free reign flying over wherever they want to. And if you notice on our blue player side, it looks like we do have Infestors on the field with enough energy for fungal growth. Now researching starting energy, but 5 more Hydralisks on the way for our red player, but the upgrades have finished, or at least the attack has, and the armor is almost done.
So it looks like we're going to be having a battle of Infestors and Roaches, and maybe a couple Mutalisks against Roaches and Hydras. So this will be a pretty interesting battle to see how this pans out. Fungal growth does about 40 damage, but if you notice, Hydralisks only have about 80 hit points, so they're pretty soft, and fungal growth could actually do quite a bit of damage. It's pretty much the Zerg equivalent to a Psystorm. Not quite as powerful, but it gets the job done.
And this is the new fungal growth, which was recently buffed, doing 30% more damage versus armored units. So if you're going Roach versus Roach, which is the majority of the army, a couple fungal growths will easily turn the tide of this battle, seeing as Roaches are armored. But here comes the battle right now on the ramp. Hydra is not really sure what to attack. Looks like they're going for the Queen. Here come the Roaches, though. A fungal growth could easily stop this whole army. Fungal growth needs to go down. There it is, getting massive, pretty much the whole army. And now all of these units are softened up. Another fungal growth, and you're going to see how much damage fungal growth really does here, as these Roaches should, with the amount of Hydras that were there, would have cut through those Roaches, and they still are. You can see how powerful Hydras are, but with those fungal growths, our blue player is actually going to be able to survive here, spawning more defensive Roaches. If he didn't have that fungal growth, would have easily lost that battle.
Easily. One side note though is that the blue player lost a couple of his Infestors in that battle. You always want to lay down your fungal growth, but then you need to move those Infestors back. You don't want to leave them vulnerable. You could also burrow them. Unfortunately, our blue player has not researched burrow yet either. So some of these upgrades are a little out of order. If you're going for Infestors, you need to get burrow because that's their biggest safety mechanisms. Even if you have Roach, burrow's pretty useful. You can use it to regen their health pretty fast. And as one thing you notice is both players got their Roach speed very late in this game. You want to get that Roach speed fast. Speed is always a good thing.
So, looks like our red player sticking with Roach Hydra, now getting his upgrades, realizing he's at an upgrade disadvantage, although our blue player is almost going to finish level 2, and spawning 10 Roaches to the 15 of our red Zerg player. Our red Zerg player finally staying on top of his macro, but now our blue Zerg player should definitely look towards expanding, but it looks like our red player wants to be super aggressive here. Here comes another battle. This infestor, do we have enough for fungal growth? Yes, we do. He realizes he needs to back up. Oh, he needs to back up right here. Go to his infestors. With this upgraded roach ball, level 2 just about to finish. I think our red player is waiting for his 11 roaches to spawn just to definitely bust open our blue player's base.
One thing you'll notice there is that the red player auto-attacked his units towards the blue player, and Zerglings, being as fast as they are, got there way sooner than the rest of the army. That's not a good thing. You want to use those Zerglings for your surround abilities. You don't just want to throw Zerglings to your enemy and just let them die. Even though they don't have a lot of hit points and they don't do a lot of damage, they're very useful for gaining control of the battle.
So here comes fungal growth going down again on both, catching both groups of enemies. And another one could be utilized on the second group, grabbing the left side now. And these roaches now with their +2, it just shows you how much these upgrades stack with +2, 1, and only 1, 0. With 4 fungal growths on that whole army, all of these units are incredibly softened up. And now our red player is really against the ropes. Our blue player having map control and really should be sticking on top of his macro, just now taking this high yield, even though he busted the rocks down a lot earlier. Looks like he's moving in here though, trying to find the weakness, the good spot to engage, but backing out right now, I guess waiting for his 15 roaches and 2 more infestors.
15 roaches on both sides coming
15 roaches. But here comes the battle right now. This infestor needs to get out of there. He's in the front, focusing fire down, but there's the fungal growth on every roach, and all these roaches are armored, taking that extra 30% damage from the fungal growth, and now the upgrades and the superior numbers with fungal growth just shows you how easy it is to use fungal growth. All you do is press F and then click where you want it, and now he is definitely in full control because of this fungal growth now streaming down his reinforcements. And here comes another battle, roach versus roach, but it's upgrades versus only half the upgrades, and still we have infestors backing up, fungal growth catching 2 unlucky roaches, and now our red player's in a lot of trouble.
One thing you might notice is while this battle is going on, there's a lot of roach play, a lot of micro going on here, but the blue player kept his head here, and he has now triple expanded. He took his high yield, and he took 2 more bases down in the left corner there. He did lose that infestor,
He's trying to go through the gauntlet of acid right there, through the little line.
Not a good place to send your
slip
infestor.
And slide of acid.
But you can see he's staying on top of his micro a little bit, but he had the sense to keep expanding. Although a triple expand might not be quite as necessary, that might be a little wasteful. But he has the idea down. You want to expand, you want to keep expanding so that your economy is far superior than your enemy.
These infestors should either research burrow or just come way back here. There's no reason for them just to sit here. Seeing as fungal growth only costs energy, all you have to do is wait and keep them alive, and that's just more money for roaches. Our red player barely holding on here, streaming roaches from his other base though, because even though he has proxy hatcheries. Now, in Zerg versus Zerg, creep spread, it's not a necessity, but if you're going a heavy ground army, you definitely want creep spread, because although it helps out your enemy, it also helps out you, and if you're going ground army, especially earlier against the Mutalisk, you would want that creep spread. But now it looks like our blue player actually just spawning some queens and a couple drones here. But really, let's take a look at the units lost tab. Yeah, our red player taking much heavier losses.
That fungal growth is really making the difference in this battle. Also, one thing the blue player maybe could have done that I probably would have done in this game is I would have tried to harass that third base a little bit more. It's so far separated from red's main base. Whenever you have a base that's that far separated, especially with no creep in between, it's not too hard to harass that. Especially, just send 2 infestors down there, fungal growth the drones. If you get 2 fungal growths on them, they're all going to pop. So it's just little things like that that you could do that's not really gonna kill your army at all. But as you can see, our blue player has his gold going very strong now. He's got a massive ball of roaches backed up by these infestors, and right now it's not looking very good for our red player. Our
red player is actually having a pretty good sized ball, but this fungal growth is really going to show definitely how much more powerful it is to have infestors. All you have to do is F-click, the hotkey is F, and then really the amount of damage is just constantly just sucking the HP off. And when you're not doing that same amount of damage back, it's obvious who's going to win this fight. Even though our focus firing isn't great, we have some roaches attacking buildings. There they go, taking down the roaches. But at this point, the fungal growth did its job, and now these roaches can just move in and do theirs against it very softened up.
If you also notice, the upgrades here are very different. Blue player almost has his 3rd attack finish, so yep, there it goes. So now he's 2 armor, 3 attack against 1 armor, 2 attack. So he stayed ahead on his upgrades, so even with even numbers and no infestors, the blue player still would have won that battle.
Yeah. So it looks like our blue player just constantly streaming down roaches. This game looks pretty far over. Our red player is running out of money, where our blue player is skyrocketing because of his gold and triple expanding. And it just shows you, when you have full map control, really the power of expanding is Zerg. When our red player had map control earlier, there's the GG. When our red Zerg player had map control early game, he could have easily taken these 2 double expands, both gold, and really would have had a much better shot at winning the game, seeing as he was winning earlier. But now this massive roach ball, with the infestors turning the tide of this game, really has now allowed our blue player, Rongelol, to win this game.
If you also notice, during that final battle, Red's numbers, his food supply was falling drastically. He was losing his army and it wasn't getting replaced because his economy wasn't there. If you looked at the blue player's food supply, it stayed constant. Even though he was losing roaches, he was replacing roaches even faster. So he stayed at about 170 food throughout that entire battle.
If you notice something, blue only has 58 harvesters. It takes 30 harvesters to optimally fully saturate. And even though he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, he should have a lot more harvesters than 60. Obviously these aren't saturated at all, but really this also did allow him to get a very beefy ball of roaches going. So this is one of our first videos sent to us by Rongelol. Thanks for sending to us, and send us your replays at StarCraft2edu.
Thanks.